You think you know everything about those little green creatures that populate our St. Patrick's Day cards and horror movies? Think again. The story of the leprechaun hides secrets that even the most dedicated folklore enthusiasts never imagined. Stick around until the end because I'm about to reveal why these Irish sprites are actually far more terrifying and fascinating than anything Hollywood has ever shown us. And wait until you discover what ancient Irish people really did when they encountered one of them. When we think of leprechauns, most of us immediately picture that friendly little creature dressed in green, with his top hat and polished boots dancing merrily around a rainbow while jealously guarding his pot of gold. This picture-perfect image is light years away from the reality of authentic Irish folklore. Because you see, the real leprechaun has nothing in common with a breakfast cereal mascot. In traditional Irish tales, the leprechaun was described as a deeply solitary and particularly unpleasant being. Picture instead a grumpy old man, constantly in a foul mood, who spends his days smoking a pipe that gives off nauseating smoke. His cantankerous character and propensity for gratuitous meanness made him a figure that Irish peasants preferred to avoid at all costs. Far from the image of a harmless little prankster, the traditional leprechaun was notorious for his particularly vicious tricks and his ability to make life impossible for anyone unfortunate enough to cross his path. This transformation of the leprechaun's image didn't happen overnight. It resulted from a process of sanitization that began as early as the late Middle Ages, when Irish artists and writers began massively integrating this character into their popular culture. Then, with the massive immigration of Irish people to North America in the 19th and 20th centuries, the leprechaun underwent a real marketing makeover. Expatriate Irish communities needed unifying symbols to maintain their cultural identity, and the leprechaun, once dusted off and made more presentable, proved perfect for this role. But let's return to the origins of this fascinating creature. Leprechauns are descendants of the Tuatha Dé Danann, a people of fantastic creatures who attempted to invade Ireland with the help of their druids with formidable magical powers. This mythological lineage partly explains their supernatural abilities and their deeply ambivalent nature. The Tuatha Dé Danann, according to Irish mythology, were a people of gods and heroes who ruled over Ireland before the arrival of the Gaels. When the latter conquered the island, an agreement was reached. The Tuatha Dé Danann would keep the underground territories and hidden places, giving birth to the concept of the little people, to which leprechauns belong. This divine filiation explains why leprechauns possess such particular powers. Unlike sprites from other European folklores, they don't settle for small pranks. They master the magic of illusion at an almost professional level. Capable of creating mirages so realistic, they can fool even the most suspicious individuals. Their specialty: making impossible riches seem within reach. This ability comes from their nature, deeply connected to gold and earthly riches, a heritage from their divine ancestry. If you thought the story ended there, hold on a minute. Because the leprechaun isn't just a simple treasure guardian. His main occupation is making and repairing shoes, an activity that may seem mundane, but actually hides deep symbolism. In Celtic folklore, shoes represent the link between man and earth, between the physical world and the spiritual world. As a cobbler of the little people, the leprechaun ensures this mystical connection. Each hammer blow on the leather resonates like a heartbeat of the earth itself. If you're enjoying this dive into the mysteries of Irish folklore, don't hesitate to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our explorations of the legendary creatures that populate our collective imagination. This profession as a cobbler also explains why we often hear the leprechaun before seeing him. The characteristic sound of his hammer striking the sole of a shoe echoes through the Irish countryside like an alarm signal. The ancients knew that hearing this sound meant a leprechaun was working nearby, and therefore a unique opportunity was presenting itself. Because according to tradition, whoever managed to capture a leprechaun could demand that he reveal the location of his treasure. But beware, this quest for treasure was never a walk in the park. The leprechaun masters the art of dishonest negotiation like no one else. In practically all traditional tales, the one who thinks he has outsmarted a leprechaun ends up being duped in the most humiliating way possible. These creatures excel in the art of turning words against those who speak them, transforming the slightest imprecision into an escape route. A man who asks, "Where is your gold?" might very well receive the answer, "Under the oak tree over there," only to discover that the forest contains thousands of oaks, and that the leprechaun has vanished while chuckling. This deceptive nature of the leprechaun reflects a deep truth of Irish folklore. Easy wealth doesn't exist, and those who seek it through underhanded means always end up being the fools. It's a lesson in folk wisdom disguised as a fantastic tale, typical of the Irish oral tradition that excelled in the art of transmitting moral teachings through entertaining stories. The leprechaun's habitat also deserves our attention. Contrary to the popular image that systematically associates them with rainbows, leprechauns traditionally live in much more down-to-earth places. They particularly favor old ruins, abandoned stone forts, and ancient burial mounds. These places, steeped in history, correspond perfectly to their nature as guardians of the secrets of the past. They often settle in natural cellars or hidden caves, where they can work leather in peace while watching over their precious treasures. The relationship between leprechauns and gold deserves closer examination. This obsession with precious metals doesn't simply stem from ordinary greed. In Celtic tradition, gold possesses particular magical properties. It doesn't just shine, it concentrates and amplifies mystical energies. For a leprechaun, accumulating gold amounts to accumulating magical power in solid form. Each coin in his pot represents a portion of pure magic that he can use for his enchantments and illusions. This magical dimension of their wealth explains why leprechauns are so reluctant to part with it. It's not simple cupidity, it's a matter of spiritual survival. Without their gold, they would lose a large part of their supernatural abilities and become ordinary creatures, vulnerable to the vagaries of the physical world. That's why they deploy so much ingenuity to protect their treasures and deceive those who try to steal them. The evolution of the leprechaun in modern popular culture constitutes a fascinating sociological phenomenon. Hollywood seized upon this creature in the 1990s with the Leprechaun horror film series, transforming the grumpy little cobbler into a genuine miniature psychopath. This horrific reinterpretation, although far from traditional folklore, paradoxically rediscovers certain authentic aspects of the original character, notably his cruelty and his deeply antisocial nature. Simultaneously, the marketing industry created the sanitized version we all know, that jovial little fellow who promotes Lucky Charms cereal or parades during St. Patrick's Day festivities. This dichotomy between the horrific leprechaun of cinema and the commercial leprechaun of brands reflects the tension inherent in the original mythological character, both fascinating and repulsive, attractive and dangerous. Some experts think that the word leprechaun itself might derive from the name of the ancient Celtic god Lugh, deity of the sun and light, who also presided over arts and crafts. This potential etymology would reinforce the link between leprechauns and craftsmanship, explaining their legendary mastery of leatherwork and their obsessive perfectionism. Lugh was renowned for excelling in all technical domains, a characteristic that leprechauns would have inherited from their divine ancestor. The geography of the leprechaun extends well beyond Ireland, even though the island remains his territory of origin. We find similar creatures throughout the Celtic arc, from Scotland to Brittany, each with its local particularities, but sharing the same fundamental characteristics: small size, solitary nature, complex relationship with wealth and artisan talents. This geographical diffusion testifies to the antiquity of the myth and its deep integration into primitive Celtic culture. The impact of the leprechaun on contemporary Irish identity remains ambivalent. While some Irish people appreciate that this creature helps make their folklore known worldwide, others are annoyed to see their culture reduced to this simplistic stereotype. This tension illustrates the challenges faced by all cultures whose traditional symbols are appropriated and commercialized on a global scale. But beyond debates about cultural appropriation, the leprechaun continues to fascinate because he embodies universal archetypes. The perfectionist artisan who works in the shadows, the keeper of secrets who reveals them only reluctantly, the trickster who turns every situation to his advantage. All these elements resonate in the human collective unconscious, regardless of cultural boundaries. Today, as our world becomes increasingly connected and standardized, the leprechaun reminds us of the importance of preserving local particularisms and oral traditions. These ancestral stories carry irreplaceable folk wisdom, life lessons transmitted from generation to generation in the form of marvelous tales. To lose these stories is to lose a part of our common humanity. So there you have the true face of the leprechaun. Neither the sympathetic commercial sprite nor the cinematic monster, but a complex and ambivalent creature that reflects the contradictions of human nature. A being who attracts us with his promises of easy wealth while punishing us for our greed, who fascinates us with his talents while repelling us with his execrable character. A perfect mirror of our own weaknesses and aspirations, disguised as an Irish fairy tale. The next time you see a leprechaun on a St. Patrick's Day card or in a movie, remember this story. Behind the commercialized folklore lies a 1,000-year-old tradition, rich with teachings and mysteries. For that is indeed the leprechaun's true treasure.